before in my life.
The nerve of her coming here with your face. What are you going to do about it?
Left at camp and you'll spend them all together. Room together, eat together, play together.
How old are you? I'll be 14 November 12th. That's my birthday, too. What is your mother like? Busted up with Dad when I was young. There used to be a picture of her on Daddy's desk. What do you do with her picture? It's my mother. But it's my mother, too. Sisters. Do you want to meet Father? I'm just dying to know Mother.
Let's get together, yeah, yeah, yeah. Why did you and I come on?
My very own father.
Let's get together.
Oh, Father.
Father.
We be a friend.
Do you miss me?
You'll never know. If we switched, sooner or later they'd have to unswitch us. And they'd have to meet again, face to face.
Think of all that we could.
Susie, there's been a lot of things happening since you left.
What does a young girl like her see in him? I'll give you a million reasons, and he's got them right in the bank.
We're in trouble. I'll have to bring Mother out here immediately.
Oh, what a time for you to show up, just when I'm going to get married.
Daddy, please don't marry that woman.
I'm going to marry your father, so you get used to the idea.
You want a bet?
Let's get together, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Off with the old and on with the new, eh?
You ever get that funny feeling like something's going to happen? Like a storm brewing?
We will be. Let's get together. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was wonderful, girls.
Great.
Welcome back to the show, everybody.
Welcome back to the show.
This one was fun.
I love this movie.
Cute movie.
I've been waiting to do it for a while. A return to classic Disney on our podcast.
We love classic.
I think our last classic Disney we did was Bedknobs and Broomsticks with Darren.
Oh, yeah, that was a fun one. That was indeed a fun one. Well, everybody out there listening, my name's Pete.
And I'm Scott, and these are the movies that made us gay.
Yay! Well, Scott, would you like to talk about what we watched and who we got on our show today?
We watched the original Parent Trap, released June 21st, 1961, directed by David Swift, with our friend of the pod, Rufino Cabang. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yeah.
Cabang.
Cabang.
I love that.
It's onomatopoetic.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm a big fan.
Awesome. Well, this movie...
The Parent Trap. So this was one of those movies that when it was on TV when I was a kid, it was straight up like, cancel your afternoon plans. The fucking Parent Trap is on, and you're watching all 2.5 hours of it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's 2.5 hours, but it's up there though.
208, I think, something like that.
Those old Disney movies.
Yeah.
They were long, leisurely paced.
But just like a standby of my childhood.
Yeah.
And the Disney Channel.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we talk a little bit, Rufino, why don't you talk a little bit about when you first saw this movie and the impact it had on you?
Sure. Well, I'm so happy to talk about this movie because it epitomizes in so many great ways a movie that made me gay. I was a really little kid. My siblings are all 10, 11, 12 years older than I am. So my cultural literacy is like behind by a few years.
Right.
And we had a movie book, and I saw a picture of Haley Mills in their cabin in a black and white picture in a movie book. And I thought, I don't know what this is. I don't know who this is, but I want this in my life. And I was a little kid, and I was a sissy Filipino obese with a lateral lisp kid whom I now love, whom I've grown to love because there's no place for self-loathing in a caring world. Yeah. But we couldn't summon movies like we can now. Not even like in the 80s and 90s when you got them. In the 70s, I had to wait. And so I got the Scholastic book novelization, like we have those. And I saw other Haley Mills movies on TV. My sister, who knew my story well before I did, said, watch this movie. It was called The Chalk Garden with Haley Mills, and I fell in love with her. So anyway, it finally aired on Wonderful World of Disney. I think in like maybe 2 parts, so it's edited. But I taped it on my dad's Betamax recorder in the 70s and watched it over and over. And it's my Rocky Horror. I would yell along with it, the words, anyway. So and Haley Mills has always been a big thing for me. When I was like 8 or 9, we had to do a spotlight thing in class, and I remember saying, my favorite actress is Haley Mills. And nobody knew who that was because my literacy was 10 years, previous. So that's what brings me here to be so happy.
That's awesome.
That's very sweet. I love that.
And wasn't there just something when you were a kid that was just so fascinating about identical twins?
Yes. Agreed.
Just like fascinated, and you just were jealous. You wanted, you longed to have an identical twin. I don't know what it is about when we're kids. We just want that kind of.
It seems magical to someone who isn't a twin, and also for me, again, I always wanted to be something I really wasn't. So that could be James Bond or Lee Majors or Haley Mills,
right?
And she was this charming blonde Brit, and there were 2 of her. And I wanted to be that, And
that Haley Mills voice, that beautiful Haley Mills voice. So I've kind of noticed in this performance, I think that she tried to do sort of a California accent, and then midway through, she just drops both of them, and she's just talking like Haley Mills.
Yeah, on the featurettes, she talks about working with the dialogue coach, and said she did it with varying degrees of success.
Yeah,
she knows that, but she's so charming. It kind of, for me anyway,
right?
I think it's kind of the same. Like when you watch, what is it? That Darn Cat.
Yeah.
I feel like the accent work is, But again, it was that time. Not again. We haven't talked about it, but it was that time, that early '60s, mid '60s time in film where kind of actors just spoke in that mid-Atlantic
kind of lilt.
That Cary Grant, like, are they British? Are they playing American? It's just a sophisticated way of speaking.
Or it's like an Angela Lansbury thing that actresses like her moved to America during the war, and they just kept up with that very proper way of speaking.
Yeah, in some scenes, the degree of her British accent popping out sounds no more British to me than classic Bette Davis. It's that weird, mid-Atlantic thing with just, I guess, sounded good on microphones or something. I read that they kept it going.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, but hey, it works. It works in movies.
So when The Parent Trap came along, Haley Mills was just doing her second film in a series of 6 that she did for Disney, because she had just done Pollyanna the year before, and that won her the last junior Oscar that they gave out. Haley Mills won it for Pollyanna, and she's the last young actor to receive that. I think they should bring that Oscar back. They need to bring it back. But yeah, she did The Parent Trap, and I found something out interesting in my research for this movie. And it would have been around the production time for this movie that Stanley Kubrick approached her parents to be in the movie Lolita.
Yes.
And her dad said no.
What?
And I would imagine that they probably had to turn it down because she was in a contract with Disney at the time. And something tells me that Walt would not approve her doing Lolita with Kubrick. But I just thought that was interesting.
My sister Julie told me that. And again, she educated me on so many things. But yeah, anyway, yeah, I've heard that as well.
And I almost feel like they styled who was in the original Lolita?
Sue Lyons.
I almost feel like they styled her after Haley Mills in this movie.
Those bangs.
Yeah. She's sort of wearing the Haley Mills wig from the beginning of the movie.
Well, that's her real hair in the beginning of the movie. Mm-hmm. Don't get me started on this wig that they've got her in the rest of the movie.
I know. It gets real frizzy.
Yes. I don't have a big history with this movie, I have to admit. I remember seeing it on television as a kid. We got Disney Channel, and it was a huge deal. when we got it. And my sister and I and my cousins would come over a lot, and we would just watch everything that was on the Disney Channel nonstop. And I remember watching this with the family and everybody sitting around, and me just sitting there in front of the TV watching, and the movie's just going on. Everybody's quiet. I'm just sitting there, and I just blurted out, "That's a wig."
Wig.
And my dad going, "Why do you say that?" And I'm like, "Look at it. It's a wig." I was like, "You can't see any of her head." And just like, explaining to the family why I felt that, the short version was more wiggy. And they were just like, "Okay." And then everybody stopped talking again, and we finished the movie.
And her real hair is it's smooth and silky looking.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then even when she's cutting her hair in that scene, the wig that they're cutting is really frizzy and like straw.
Yes. And thank God they gave her a wig to cut and didn't just say like, "Well, let's just do some cuts with your real hair because we're cutting it anyway." Because they probably, left it long. I feel like that hairstyle that she has when it's longer, that's kind of like her Miss Bliss hair.
Yeah.
It's kind of like adult Hayley Mills hair.
Yeah.
Like she's stuck with that shape for a long time. But yeah, that's I don't remember a lot of the movie and beats of it. I just remember that particular moment, and kind of when my dad asked me like, "What are you talking about? Why do you think that?" and kind of explaining it. And then after everybody got quiet again, thinking, maybe I shouldn't have said anything about the wig. And that's really all that stuck with me about it. I have serious questions about the premise of this movie.
This premise is bananas.
These parents are horrible people.
It's like a Sophie's Choice situation. I could
really
never
is.
do it.
How do you decide which one you're going to keep? How do you decide that you are going to separate your infant children and not allow them to know that they have a sibling? What was the plan?
I want to see like a cut scene, like a prologue with the judge at like a family court hearing going over this case.
Yeah.
Especially when both parents seem loving.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I feel like, maybe at the time a judge just probably asked the dad, like, "What do you think? You cool with this?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, you're the dad. You're the husband. So whatever you want's cool with me." Because that's probably how the family court systems worked. And
for my own reasons, I would probably go with either parent for very different reasons.
Well, I mean, let's get down to it. These people are loaded.
Yeah.
There's old money. There's ranch money.
Yeah. There's Boston Society money. Like, oh my goodness gracious. Okay. That's kind of like this era of movies. The protagonists have to be independently wealthy so that they're aspirational and you want to watch them. Nobody wants to watch, people living in squalor.
You don't want to see like one of the other twins have to go back to this like sad bachelor apartment.
Yeah.
You want like you want the cool ranch house.
Yes.
Right. And can I say that that's something that I am more willing to accept in a movie like the OG Parent Trap compared to the 98 version. I can suspend my disbelief and love the wealthy people in an old movie, but casual wealth in something contemporary seems vulgar to me. So
yes.
That's one of the things I feel about.
Yeah.
Or just treating that how old is Lindsay? She's 11. That the Natasha Richardson character was able to ascend to this like Vera Wang like
status.
Wedding dress status in just a matter of a decade.
Yeah. There must have been a breakthrough safety pin dress for her or something.
Yeah.
Or a gypsy curse, maybe. But so yeah, that was one of the things when we were watching the Lindsay version. I was just kind of asking Scott. I was like, "So wait, are they rich in this too? Like, there's going to be maids and butlers in this one as well? Because there's Verbena, in our version." I love the maid characters. I love Verbena. I love, I like the dad situation better than, is it Maureen O'Hara?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Granted, her mansion is fabulous, but are we to kind of understand that she just lives in her parents?
She just lives with her mom and dad,
and that's their money. She's a single woman.
I think I do think it's like old money, because the first thing you hear the grandmother talking about is philanthropy and putting together that piano concert and everything in their own ballroom. So I think you just, if your marriage doesn't work out, you just go home to your wing of that mansion.
Yes. Right. Right.
And while that looks like a lovely mansion, it's a little bit more uptight for my taste. So yeah, I think the dad, this ranch, like Spanish style villa.
Oh my God.
We can talk about the ranch later when we get to that portion of the movie. This ranch that's almost like a crazy sitcom house that I don't really know the floor plan of this house because the outside doesn't quite match the inside, but I'm loving what's going on though.
I love it. And I'll definitely have a few things.
We'll get into it.
Yeah.
We should probably say this is based on a German book called Lottie and Lisa, and there are 2 previous adaptations to this movie prior to 1961. The first one is called Twice Upon a Time from 1951, and the other is a movie from Germany called 2 Times Lottie from 1950. Thought that was interesting. So it was already an old hat property that was already working the rounds in movies before the Disney company picked it up in the late 50s.
Yeah, and I don't know if you caught any. I read when I was researching yesterday that Bill, I want to say Bill Dover, I don't want to get it wrong, but he was the story editor for Disney, and he just found that story and said to Walt Disney, look at this. And that was like, oh, this is perfect for Haley.
This is right on brand for us.
I want her.
We can cart out one of our kids to be the lead in the movie. And it seems like at first they were only going to be using the twin photography for just a handful of shots.
Right.
But then they just sort of got cocky with it and they used it a lot.
Yes. And I was just listening to another episode of yours. And I think Jackie Beat was talking about the importance of practical effects and stuff like that. And I feel the same way about older style special effects. Like when I look at it in an older movie, I don't think, oh, that's so fake. I look look what trouble they did to do this. So when I see like the fight in the cafeteria, and yes, you can clearly see they've edited so there's one person here, one person there. But I love the fact that was done. And it's spectacular. And to see her together with herself is spectacular to me.
Yeah, those shots where both of them are clearly in the shot with each other, I think are pretty effective. But I also live for the Haley Mills stand-in shots.
Yes.
We can kind of see her face.
Susan Henning. Because there's some shots that you're like, oh, yeah, that's the double.
Yes.
But hey, they got it. That girl, like...
I mean, you have to be looking for it.
Yes.
She's got a passing resemblance to Haley Mills. I'm not mad at who they picked.
She's in the featurettes on my 2-movie collection of The Parent Trap. And she talks about, she points out, Susan Henning Schutte, she talks about the scenes where you can see her face. And it's really fun. She's
love
great.
that.
Well, I mean, isn't the situation that she was uncredited in the movie?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, that's something that goes back to this old style of filmmaking when, the cast list would only really list major characters,
the principals,
leads. So a lot of people are uncredited in movies from this era. It's just it's not as thorough as it is now. We just expect every single background actor to have a credit on screen.
It's not like an IMDb list now, which is pages.
Yeah. Speaking of IMDb, well, this is actually from Wikipedia, our other source of unfaltering truth. There was a Japanese version in 1951.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Hibari's Lullaby. And then after the Disney version, there were several Bollywood versions.
This premise lends itself to a Bollywood adaptation.
Yeah, there were like 3 or 4 different Bollywood versions in the 60s and up through the 70s.
I think
there's a Let's Get Together number done in Bollywood.
Oh, yeah.
I would love that.
Yeah. I love the Annette Funicello, like little, vocal cameos in this movie.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I love the opening stop motion animation.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
It is.
It's so charming.
It is, and it's so indicative of that time.
Yes.
And I was so curious watching it because another thing is when I watched it and recorded it on Betamax, that was on Wonderful World of Disney, and they didn't have the full opening credits. It was always the Disney credit, the TV show credit. So until I saw this on my disc that I got a few years ago, I'd never seen that stop motion opening, and I didn't know what John and Marcia was. But there was a classic comedy routine by Stan Freberg, this comedian, when he did John and Marcia characters. And I guess that was a pretty much in vogue thing for a few years. And that's why they threw them into the beginning.
That's so interesting. I didn't even know that either. I just thought
you may have heard it. It's this comic routine where it's music and he's saying, John, Marcia, John. And he keeps doing different readings of those two words. So you get a romance.
Okay.
And lovemaking and everything.
Sure.
So that's why they threw that into the opening.
That's so funny. That's something that you just, if without context, you're just like, oh, okay, this is just a cute.
Yeah. But like, wasn't it Mitch and Maggie who
right. Mm-hmm. I didn't even think about that.
So these
opening the his and hers also, I guess that was a working title at one point.
Okay, that works. That's a good title.
Which is why those the dressing rooms of those two beach figures,
the beach cabanas. Yeah,
I think that this movie shot under "We Belong Together." I think that was the working title of the movie before they settled on The Parent Trap.
Good title, also.
So these opening summer camp scenes shot at Bluff Lake Camp around Big Bear, and this is Camp Inch.
Camp Inch. Miss Inch owns this camp?
I don't know.
After her? Why not?
She's another rich benefactress, I suppose.
Yes, exactly.
They're all over the place.
The Dowager Inch.
Yeah.
I love that actress. Her voice, her delivery, she's so funny.
I always remember her from The Birds. Tippi Hedren goes to buy these songbirds from her at a pet shop.
That's right.
Lovebirds.
The
Lovebirds, right.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Miss Inch is amazing.
And also iconic lesbian that follows her around.
Miss Hathaway?
Yeah.
Miss Hathaway from the Beverly Hillbillies.
Nancy Culp, right.
Mm-hmm.
She was fantastic.
And I mean, she's really kind of butching it up in this role. It's a small role,
but
she's really like she
does archetypal gym teacher energy vibe thing here.
Absolutely.
And then I don't know if you notice the three of them when they're at that tribunal, maybe we'll get that later, of the two girls handing out the punishment. There's a third woman at that table and her face is so sour. They have these character faces that are brilliant. And I don't know who that actress was.
I love that. I'll keep my eye out for that next time we watch it.
But love all the summer camp scenes. I remember when the summer camp in Big Bear went up for sale, and guest and friend of the pod on the show, Moran Clausen, we wanted to research into buying the summer camp. We were curious of how much it was going for. I think it was like $5 million or something.
Oh my gosh! Well, that seems like a deal.
At that time, it was owned by the Pasadena Boys and Girls Club when they shot this movie.
Oh wow!
Mm-hmm.
Now, did either of you ever go to a sleepaway camp?
I did.
You did.
It wasn't quite like this movie, but it was pretty similar, though. But the one that I went to is maybe a week long. But these are those very specific types of East Coast summer camps that go on for months.
Right.
It's like rich New Yorkers and stuff just drop their kids off for the summer and then just go off to the Hamptons.
And that was another thing for me as a little kid, looking at this glamorous little girl who goes to this camp for, 6 weeks or 8 weeks or something. And as a kid, now I grew up in Laguna Beach, was not, it's not the projects, but we were Filipinos in Laguna Beach. We didn't do the things the other white kids did, which was ski vacations and summer camps. We didn't do that. And so that was so exotic to me. And I just longed to go to it. But of course, I probably wanted to be at a summer camp with a bunch of other girls. And
Yeah, I never did a sleepaway camp, and I feel like if I did, like you said, I would have just felt out of place the boys at first, and probably would have taken a while to kind of fit in. But it is exotic, especially for West Coast kids, to watch this in movies like this, and just any movie where the kids go off to summer camp, and you're just like, that seems so cool.
Yeah.
But these are really fun scenes.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that when they do first meet each other, and the other campers are just like, get a load of her.
Yeah, if I was one of these camp counselors or like Miss Inch, I would just be like, okay, girls, we have to figure this shit out.
Like what the hell is going on?
What the hell is going on? Because you two are the exact same person. Like, nobody just like stepped in. It was just like, I'm just going to at least call your mom.
You just got to suspend that disbelief.
It's disbelief, right? Yeah. And there's a moment as a little kid, because I was always such a fuss budget, when her friend, when she says, you're the spitting image of you-know-who, and then she says, Frankenstein. I always wanted to yell out, you mean Frankenstein's monster, right? Because Frankenstein would be pretty bad, but I think you mean Frankenstein's monster.
The monster.
And meanwhile, we're just like, bitch, it's your profile too.
Yeah.
So burn.
Yeah, that's my thing. I'm like, oh, wow, big burn. I look like Frankenstein. Well, so do you. You look the same. So the mischief that they cause in the summer camp.
Just like, this is like the jackass portion of the movie. Camp pranks.
They're crazy pranks, but the punishment, on the one hand, it's like, oh, wow, okay, they have a private cabin away from the other campers. Not that bad. But on the other hand, it does suck because they can't even like interact with the other campers like at lunch. They just have to hang out with each other.
And they initially clearly don't like each, or at least Susan makes no, effort to be nice.
Yeah.
That seems
Sharon
like
did at the beginning, kind of.
Yeah, she did.
That seems like a very old school punishment of like, you two hate each other, so you're going to spend every waking minute with each other at this camp. That's like a punishment that like a 50s grandma would give you.
Yeah. Right. Like she says, like Miss Inch says, let the punishment fit the crime.
Okay, so the big.
But can they? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, just talking about the mischief they get into. Are all the girls on Ambien? What is going on? Because how can you sleep through all that? And how does Vicky sleep through it in the remake? All of that.
There's a lot. It's just like
that's a lot to sleep through.
The shit that they do to this cabin. It's like it would take more than 3 people.
Yeah, it's pretty out of control.
Night.
It's gonna take you a good portion of the night.
Yeah. And these girls know like Rube Goldberg physics.
Oh my goodness, yeah, these are crazy machines. When the one I'm never going to get their names correct, who's who, but when
Sharon and Susan. Sharon is the East Coast Bostonite, and Susan is the one from California, right?
Yes.
Yep. So
Sharon McKendrick and Susan Evers.
So Sharon cuts a big hole in Susan's dress.
That's pretty funny.
Susan knowing.
So, Pete, did you know the cute boy that Susan is out on the patio with? He is a Muppeteer.
He's Gonzo.
Yeah.
I read
You're
that
kidding.
last night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's the voice of Gonzo and Boomer from Fraggle Rock.
It's Dave Goles, right? Yeah.
Is he still alive?
He is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think that he still does Muppet work and voice for Fraggle Rock, I think.
That is so cute.
Yeah, again, he's uncredited, but he's the only boy camper that has any lines. So deducing that it's got to be him, because it's like the only thing that's listed is like boy camper, but it's not even on the it's not in the movie proper. It's like, listed everywhere else.
Yeah, if it's Wilfred, that's it.
Yes, I believe it is listed as Wilfred.
Mm-hmm. This was the part of the movie that when I see not school dance, like this dance scene, I just think about how wild the 60s were, that this was 1961, and just how pop culture and fashion changed at the end of the 60s, because all these extras just look so period. It's like it's a completely different decade from like 1969.
Right. It is. It's that revolution.
Yeah. Well, that early in the 60s, 1961, the fashion may as well be 50s fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? And these girls are wearing these like cocktail dresses and the boys are wearing suits to a summer camp dance, you know? And it's like if this was like the 70s or like, well, I guess Little Darlings was 1980. So that's not a good one because that's like a full 20 years later. But by the time Little Darlings comes around, these kids are in like cut off jeans and
smoking
and like half t-shirts.
Yeah.
You know,
We have a book. We have several books of Disney, like early Disneyland, and when you see all the people, the tourists, they all look really nice, and because nobody wore T-shirts as outerwear back as streetwear back then.
Yeah,
it was always collared and skirts and things like that,
or even jeans. Just
even jeans, dungarees.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's so charming though, because they all do look really cute, even though they're little kids in these like formal like outfits. It is a fun scene, and that's again another Annette. That's Annette, and it's the guy from Babes in Toyland.
Tommy Sands.
Because I think that they recorded it as they were making Babes in Toyland.
Yeah.
And they're singing it at the dance. They're singing the big song.
Was it?
Right.
Let's Get Together.
Written by the Sherman Brothers, and I believe this was the first collaboration the Sherman Brothers did with Disney.
Yeah.
And they would have a long relationship with them for the next
relationship.
12 years or so.
This is pre-Mary Poppins?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, this is 61, I believe.
Mary Poppins was what, 60, 65?
65, I think, yeah.
Wow. That bitch slap that Susan gives.
Oh, yeah.
There
are some slaps in this movie, some loud ones.
Holy shit.
Yeah, there's some good slaps.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a good one, but the slap later on in the movie, that one really makes me grasp my pearls.
That one scares me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because she's ferocious.
Susan walking up to Sharon and just slapping her in the face. It just like, it rivals just like the Betty Davis slap from, what's the follow-up to Whatever Happened to Baby Jane?
Hush Hush or
Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte. And that movie has a insane movie slap too.
Yeah, it's pretty dramatic, but I mean, we got to pump up the drama to get these two isolated from the other campers. We do get the really fun fight, like physical fight at the dance where Miss Inch
going full cat fight
pulls the
like giant layer cake.
Because everyone knows school dances camp dances just have a layered cake.
Yeah.
Why not?
It's like a potluck, it appears.
Yeah.
A large one.
Yeah. This cake that Miss Inch pulls off the table. What does she put? What does it get stuck on? Like a...
It's the beak of the like totem pole.
Yeah,
bird.
okay. It's a totem pole.
I was like, was it like a rhino? Like
something like that, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. But they ultimately have to get separated, isolated. When they kind of have their little moment where they see eye to eye for the first time, with the wind blowing and all the, who is it Bobby Sherman?
Ricky Nelson.
Ricky Nelson. Ricky Nelson? I feel like Sharon would know who Ricky Nelson is. Sharon is not from like the Sticks.
Yeah,
I think that she would know who Ricky Nelson was.
If you've ever had one of those friends who clearly doesn't know what's going on, I kind of understand that. Like I can see that happening.
Yeah.
I was trying to note some of the hunks on the wall. I saw it was Ricky Nelson. I think Elvis was there.
There's probably Ed Kooky Burns.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But also Sharon I'm pretty sure, at least in our household, and God knows their school situation, because apparently they never actually go to a school, is probably sheltered in her environment and only knows classical music. I have a feeling.
Yeah,
sure.
That makes sense. She does have the more stuffy upbringing. She's got that grandma to deal with.
Yeah.
Who's probably just
horrifying.
Yeah, just such a pain.
Grandma just doesn't let mom get a word in edgewise.
Or her husband.
Oh my, yeah. God help the grandpa.
He's so sweet.
Yeah.
So that they finally figured out that they've been gooped by their parents. And they figure out they're going to switch places Although I feel like they sort of have the upper ground in this situation, that they can sort of make the demands as soon as they leave camp. I feel like they're making this way too complicated.
These are hormonal hijinks, probably. But
Yeah.
I would love to point out that for me, that scene where, and David Swift talks about it, how Haley Mills was able to get the emotional impact of that discovery scene, which drives the whole reality of what they're feeling.
Sure.
When she shows her that picture of Maureen O'Hare, I burst into tears every time. No problem with that. And the music swells. And Sharon clearly takes emotional control because Susan is clearly devastated. And the way Sharon says, "It's my mother," and then as Susan collapses, Sharon just gingerly walks out of the room and says, lunch.
I don't understand. What are you doing with her picture? It's my mother. But it's my mother, too. Lunch.
And sort of kind of gently takes control of the situation. And I love that. And that to me was one of Haley Mills' more visible talents, was in the quiet moments.
Yes.
She convey a lot in that scene.
She's not just being a cutesy child actor in it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She got it.
She's conveying some real emotion in that moment.
I love the 8x10 glamour shot of Maureen O'Hara, though, that she pulls out. I just carry this full-size sheet of paper photograph of my mother.
Right. And, perhaps it was a picture taken for the wall of donors at the Red Cross.
There you go.
There you go. But yeah, I'm thinking, like, as this is going on, I'm thinking, why don't they just sit on the steps at the last day of camp next to each other, and when their parents roll up, just say, like, "Hey, what the hell? We figured it out." But guess what? The parents don't show up. They're so damn rich that they send the chauffeurs.
Yeah, exactly.
Some driver comes to get you.
Stames or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we leave the camp section of the movie, I just want to give a shout out to that child that is trying to bring home a caged skunk. I want to know the circumstances that she got this skunk. That she did she somehow make it not spray her? Like, is the skunk is it scent glands fixed? Is she she's best friends with this goddamn skunk that she wants to bring home?
Did she spray it or whatever? And does she look familiar to you?
Oh,
is it one of the Sound of Music girls?
Well, the
Is it a Cartwright?
What's that?
Is it a Cartwright?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I know, really. I love the Cartwright, but she another gay Hall of Famers, the
Right?
Cartwrights.
Yeah.
But she looks a lot like. So I looked it up online. Unfortunately, she is uncredited, like you said. Many of these actors are. She looks a lot like Marvel Ann from the Trouble with Angels franchise.
Oh, sure.
Marvel.
She looks a lot like her, and
Probably.
it could be her because a lot of those actors and actresses, they were known in a pool, and they kind of went from movie to movie.
Oh yeah.
If she was in a Haley Mills movie, she could be in a Haley Mills movie again.
Oh yeah, totally,
completely.
And I don't think Trouble with Angels was Disney. Because Haley did that in the later half of the 60s. That was probably like Columbia or something.
Yeah, she was breaking. That was after she broke away.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, she procured a cage. It's not just that she found a skunk and was just like, "I'm going to feed it, and this is going to be my camp friend." She found a cage, coaxed it in there, has been, and none of the counselors are just like, "Get that damn thing out of here."
They're all just walking around her.
Yeah.
I don't know what this moment's going to be. Is she going to have to tearfully let it out of the cage into the woods and say goodbyes, or is she going to have crazy adventures bringing this home with her? I don't know.
Was that going to break off into another franchise?
Exactly. I was going to say that could just be a whole other movie that that we're not seeing.
That darn skunk.
Starring Marvel Ann. But we get a cute scene of them, or a couple of, like a montage of them kind of training each other on, you have to bite your nails. You have to, You have
to say "cont," "shant," and "aunt."
Because of her Bostonian, Tony accent and all that. I like those scenes. Those are very cute.
I do too. There are actually a lot of moments in this movie where I couldn't understand what was being said. So until I got the DVD, which has the subtitles, I finally saw at one point Susan coaching Sharon to be Susan at the table. First of all, Sharon as Susan waving that hot dog is a weird thing to me.
Right?
Yeah. It's a weird bit of business.
Anyway. But she's a little girl, so I don't want to say anything. But also, Susan coaching her she says also flat A's. You must somehow summon all your A's as flat. And I could not understand that, but it makes sense. She had to say, Right. But I didn't understand what that meant when I was a kid.
That West Coast delivery.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's you probably, and at least these girls probably did take diction classes, so they knew how to express that as, a flat A, or instead of saying I would probably say a hard A.
Right, exactly.
Right, or something like that. But yeah,
I'd never heard flat A until this movie.
So we follow Sharon home first.
Should we talk about first the Maureen O'Hara section and then the Brian Keith section?
Yeah, because that's where we go first, right?
That's pretty much how...
Yeah, that's the order, I believe.
Yeah.
The O, yeah. So, Maureen O'Hara, she had been working a lot in Hollywood. Her big screen partner at the time, she made a lot of movies with John Wayne. Maureen O'Hara is beautiful in this movie.
Oh, my gosh. She's like Hera. She's just a goddess.
Yeah. Lifelong Republican. That's what I had always heard about Maureen O'Hara, is that she was very active in the Republican Party. But being a Republican at that time in Hollywood was not that unusual.
Also meant very
common.
Then.
Yeah, it was very different.
Definitely.
Then as it is now.
Now, was she Irish, like from Ireland?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe she was Ireland's first superstar, is what I read.
Oh.
So I was reading that Maureen O'Hara wrote in her memoirs that Disney offered her a third of her normal fee of $75,000. She only, but then she held out and she got her full pay. So she got her normal pay of $75,000, and O'Hara said her contract gave her top billing, but Disney decided to give it to Mills, which I think was the wiser option, because I think it would be very unusual to see Maureen O'Hara top billed in this movie when she's not one of the twins. And I guess that caused tensions with the studio, and it's why she never worked with Disney again.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
First and only collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
She's really good in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's doing some good work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like all the stuff when she's back at the at the ranch and she's just kind of she's being flirty with the dad. Or I like those scenes.
It turns kind of into a screwball comedy.
Yeah.
They're a very sexy couple.
Oh, yeah.
I get that they're sexy.
Yeah. I kind of think it's a missed opportunity that John Wayne wasn't in this movie, because I think it would have worked.
I'm wondering if he was he significantly older than Brian Keith would have been?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, he probably was.
But even Brian Keith is giving major John Wayne delivery in this movie. Like full Marlboro Man.
Yes. and if you may indulge me, Brian Keith in this movie, for me, made me gay as well.
He's very sexy in that sort of old man in a 1960s movie sort of way.
Yes, and I'm always drawn to that kind of solid, I think all men of different types are beautiful, but I've always been drawn to that classic Marlboro Man type. He's
guy's guy.
He looks like the cartoon of Hercules, the profile of his head. And I remember we watched it in high school. It's like make my friends watch it all the time with me, even in high school. And one of my friends, a straight guy, pointed out when he's in his jeans and that denim.
Yeah.
My friend Robin says, "Look at him. He looks good." I said, "You're telling me? I know what he wants him." He was just beautiful. He's undressing for the shower. It's like, you can't do this to a little kid.
I love his denim ranch outfit's pretty hot. What is his Jeep that he drives?
I mean,
you're a car guy. Do you know?
Wrangler.
Do you know what he drives?
The Jeep?
Yeah.
Why don't I remember the Jeep?
It's just in one scene with him and his like ranch hand guy, and he's sitting in it. It has no top. The windshield is folded flat down towards the hood, and the ranch hand guy gets in it, and then they drive away.
I can't believe I missed it, but probably in that era, it's probably like an international.
Yeah.
Like the international travel, all those.
Yeah, like it has no doors, and yeah, like I said, the windshield folds flat, and it's got a holster for like a rifle, like attached to the outside of it. So it's clearly like for hunting or something.
Yeah.
or something. Well, it's clearly for hunting.
He's got enough grounds where he can just go hunting at his own home.
Yeah. But we should talk about the townhouse. We talked a little bit about the grandparents, Maureen O'Hara's parents. So now this is Susan pretending to be Sharon.
Yes.
Right? Back in Boston. She's pulling it off.
Yeah. But I think that the grandparents do know something is off.
Well, they hate the hair.
They hate the hair. She gives Grandma this like popsicle birdcage.
Which is really cute. I want
so cute. I love the popsicle birdcage.
Adorable.
It would take forever to make too, but
did she eat all those popsicles? Did she canvass all her friends there? Can you give me your popsicles?
They probably just put them in a bowl. But yeah, for like everybody's commenting on the hair. Your grandma's gonna hate it. What did you
Meanwhile,
do?
Grandma pretty much has this haircut.
Yep. And I learned a word from Grandma because I could not understand it. She says "hoydenish," which apparently is a Dutch or Danish derived word meaning tomboyish.
Oh, okay. I just must have glossed right over that. But yeah, she just said like, "Are you a boy or a girl?" It's like your hair is the exact same length. But she's an older woman. Women of a certain age at that era didn't have long hair.
Right.
Older women cut their hair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, white women, I should say. Ethnic women, it was a different story.
And even that not weird, but that tradition in the South that's depicted in Steel Magnolias, at one point, Shelby has to cut her hair because it's that time.
Yeah. An old Southern woman, wears funny hats and likes to dig in the dirt.
Right.
She has some sweet scenes with Maureen O'Hara where she's sort of getting subtle information about her marriage and her husband, and you just kind of think like they had never talked about this before with her and Sharon. Like this had never just come up,
right?
Because it seems like it's the first time this conversation has been happening.
I assume in my disbelief or belief that Sharon was probably raised to be too genteel to dig into something personal of a parent. Yeah. I just want to point out when Susan says to her, "My goodness, you're beautiful," I burst into tears then too. Anyway,
she is beautiful.
It's touching though
because she's really just
touching.
like,
"You're my mother, who I never met.
You are stunning."
Yeah, I've only seen the picture, the black and white picture.
Do they go into what their respective parents have told them? Like, does Susan we don't know what the dad told.
No.
Susan. We don't know what the mom told Sharon about where her father is.
Maybe she just told Sharon he left.
Yeah.
That's possible.
Because they never said well, I thought she was dead. Like they just
right. Yeah, they never approach, and we don't really get a clear idea of why they broke up either.
Yeah.
It's kind of nebulous. And I'm wondering.
Well, we kind of do because they do bicker a lot. So
they do bicker a lot. Yes, you're absolutely right. I'm also wondering if this is probably the first Disney movie that ever even mentioned divorce.
Divorce.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or even just like a movie that revolved around divorce for the time.
Right.
Because I take it that whenever divorce would come up in a comedy or anything, it would have been very specific.
Yeah. Screwball comedies dealt with it, but this kind of mainstream family comedy is.
So they take a walk in this park, in this fake park, and it's iconic. So this is one of those
The
scenes
treadmill walk.
when I would watch it when I was a kid, you wouldn't think a lot about it just because you're watching it on an old tube TV. It was usually just on afternoon cable or something, and just the image quality, you wouldn't really see just how beautiful and artificial it is. But now we have like 4K 55-inch flat screen TVs, and you're like, holy shit. Like, it's almost so artificial that it's kind of cool.
I agree. The artifice to me is stunning, and particularly when it cuts to the overhead shot that's real.
Yes.
Even that transition to me is breathtaking.
Yeah.
For some reason. Yeah.
This type of process shot was, they didn't use blue screens or green screens at the time. That wasn't the technology that they had because those use video. This was all done on film cameras, and at the time Disney had their own special effects in-house people, and they developed this process, and they used this crazy kind of they call it like a sodium screen process, and they do this thing where you're in front of this screen and they put this like wall of yellow smoke, and it's literally yellow smoke behind you that's made with some kind of like sodium process, and that's they're essentially the green screen that they develop, and then they're able to drop it in. And it was way more successful than any of the other studios at the time. It looked better than any other studio's special effects. And so Alfred Hitchcock went to Disney
when he was making the birds, and asked them to borrow that process to superimpose Tippi Hedren on a boat.
Wow.
You know, with birds flying at her and all that stuff. And because he thought that it was the most successful use of kind of superimposing one image onto the other. And it was something that they had developed. I mean, now it's like special effects houses are independent and they're farmed out and all that stuff. But at the time, it wasn't like that. They just had to figure out, how are we going to make this happen with our resources? And they came up with this really crazy process. And when you look it up, that's on the Birds DVD special features. And I'm sure it's on YouTube. But it's a really crazy, weird, like, movie magic.
It's almost
like, it's crazy.
And when you watch it on a nice TV now, there's something very dreamlike about it.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's not a projection, and it's not, like I said, the green screen. Sometimes you get that blue halo around people. You know, none of that's there. It's just it's successful, and it's charming.
It's really charming, and I think the dreamlike quality is also enhanced by the fact that it looks like they're not traveling at the same rate that their steps might indicate. So they're on a treadmill as well. There's some sort of moving sidewalk.
Yeah, it's great. And it's kind of like, there's that overhead shot. So they shot that. So why didn't they just do it?
Yeah, were those stand-ins or?
It's just sort of holdovers of what you traditionally would do when making movies in Hollywood. That you would just do everything indoors.
Yeah, it's easier, I guess. Yeah,
it was more controlled.
I finally looked it up. She did her own singing. That was her voice. I finally looked it up.
Love it.
Well, Haley, yes, definitely. But Maureen O'Hara, when she sings "For Now, For Always" during the walk.
Oh, that's right.
It's actually her voice. She was a singer that people forget that she actually did sing.
Okay.
I always get really annoyed when Susan tries to recreate that song over the phone. I'm just like, bitch, like, it is not as good as when Maureen O'Hara is doing it.
Now, so you've got some important things to discuss here, girl.
Right. We should get to the ranch.
Okay, so let's unpack this ranch set.
Compound.
So I figured out last night for the first time that the entire thing is fake. Like, it's all a build. It's not like, oh, we found a house that we're going to use for the exteriors and then we're going to do it all inside on a set. The entire outside is also a set.
It
is? That's just the amount of detail that they put into this movie. I'm pretty sure when I was looking it up on IMDb, I think the whole thing is a build.
It's elaborate.
Yeah.
And it's stunning.
I still don't understand this deck that it looks like a pool, but it's just a pond.
Are you talking about the pool pond? I'm obsessed with
Yes.
the pool pond.
That's insane.
Like they just built a deck over the earth. I mean, every deck is over the earth,
Well,
but like,
Do you think that deck is made of cement or wood underneath?
You mean in reality or
In reality.
well,
Because I'm just thinking of the logistics of them building that deck. Do you think that they would have to empty out the pond?
no.
I don't know how. I don't know how one could go about constructing.
Because how would you lay that cement then?
I don't know. It's just random observations that I have now when seeing that scene, just because it's so cool to see a pool built into the side of a pond.
Yeah. And I think for the effect that I'm left with is, well, Mitch is rich enough that he said, I'd like to make that lake my swimming pool. So he had people build a whole deck and
that's
chaise
amazing.
area.
The fabulous cars.
Mm-hmm. We briefly discussed the Jeep, but love the Jeep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the house itself, it's like an indoor-outdoor situation, right? It seems like the walls are just open to the elements.
I almost thought that I always thought it was a Spanish-style house that is the courtyard in the middle, but you can see on the other side. So it's like a horseshoe shape.
Yeah, I don't know if you had ever been to the restaurant when it used to have one here, a Don Cuco in Glendale, and it was a 2-story, and there was a courtyard, and it looked like that. It was a Mexican style, and with the courtyard, the inner courtyard, and we also had a restaurant in Laguna Beach called Tortilla Flat that had the same setup, but that house is actually bigger than either of these restaurants I've been into, and it looks like they could just embrace a whole ecosystem in that courtyard.
Yeah.
The stone wall situation inside is really cool. Just
Beautiful.
all of the details on that stonework.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm just thinking like, well, they must not get a lot of rain wherever this ranch is because half the house is just open.
Open.
I mean, I guess it's California.
Yeah.
Like it heavily rains like not that often here.
Yeah. Maybe a week.
But then again, like I said earlier, this is one of those Golden Girls style houses that I want to see a floor plan of this.
Like, I want to see
where all the rooms are at, because I can't really get a good feel of when they go upstairs, what it looks like, how the downstairs looks, like how is that in relation to the kitchen. I want to see these floor plans.
And I'm entranced by the decor. It's mid-century and Mexican, Mission, Spanish, and I think it's beautiful. Especially for somebody my age, that's what was like my ideal would have been.
Oh, yeah.
Just stunning.
Yeah, the kitchen was great. It has that cool kind of stovetop situation that like it was I don't know if it's like stainless steel or whatever, but it like pulls out like the I don't even know what kind of ovens those are, but those were very modern at the time.
Yeah.
There's a point where a couple of characters are around like a kitchen table or like a butcher block or an island or something. They're clearly in the kitchen, and right in the middle of the table is just a big old ashtray.
Mm-hmm. In the kitchen.
Love it.
And might I add, at that time, ashtrays, especially art glass ashtrays, were everywhere. Even my parents, who were vehemently against smoking, had them. It was a thing.
The art glass ashtrays? Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, my grandmother had a big orange one. She had a green one. Yeah, I loved them.
The green one, every other house had a green one. We have the green one in our living room.
It matched the glass grapes. I want to talk a little bit about his bathroom. The master bathroom.
It's a cool bathroom. I like the tub and shower situation here.
That
also,
spa tub
at a time,
crazy.
The spa tub, but also the glass in that shower, very contemporary for 1961. That would have been a very cool bathroom for that time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's an implication of that where I just kept thinking, well, I could see Brian Keith naked in there.
Exactly. If you were just casually walking down the hallway and just sort of like scooched your head a little bit into the bathroom, you could totally see him showering. I always have a weird false memory of that. I almost think that there's going to be a moment where they both get in the shower together. Like I don't know, like they both like meet each other in the bathroom and they manage to have what are you doing here when they're naked in the bathroom, but it doesn't come up. I always think it's like going to be in the movie somewhere, but it is not.
Like a Casino Royale moment
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So, okay, we need to discuss Vicky.
Joanna Barnes, kind of fierce in this movie.
Love her so much.
Mm-hmm.
Her hair situation.
Oh, yeah.
It's like not quite a beehive. It's like big. It's tall. It's blown out. I mean, I love it.
I love it. It's like if you took one of Marilyn Monroe's later hairstyles and added maybe a bumpet inside it.
Yeah,
and just kind of piled it up more. That kind of curl.
It kind of looks like Julianne Moore's hair from A Single Man.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, just big barrel curls in the top, but like the sides just go straight up. It's almost like Bride of Frankenstein. Just the height. There's so much height that comes up from like her ears all the way up.
Jane Mansfield needs to do a wig styling of
James Mansfield.
James Mansfield needs to do a wig styling of Joanna Barnes' hair in this movie.
That would be fun. But I mean, she's playing your classic like.
She's going to send the daughter off to a Swiss boarding school and then just steal all of his money.
Mm-hmm. First change I make in that household. Off she goes to a boarding school in Switzerland.
And I like that
her mom is totally on board with this.
Her mom is
like her mom is like
she is like conspiring with her.
Joanna Barnes scenes when they showed it on the TV. I didn't get a lot of those until I saw it later in life and saw all the scenes with her in them. She's really good. Mm-hmm. I think she's really effective.
She plays wicked stepmother or girlfriend really well.
Mm-hmm. And I have this fantasy casting thing where I do alternate universe castings. And I think at another time in history, it could have been Sharon Stone or Claudia Christian. Or there are a few that it's not to diminish what it is to a type, but it's an archetype that is so classic and so powerful that
Elaine Hendricks plays her in the 98
that's what it was leading to.
And she's really good.
Elaine Hendricks is perfect. I forgot to. That's what I was leading to. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I love that when we were watching a little bit of the 98 one before the recording, she doesn't look all that mismatched with Dennis Quaid. I don't know. It's just like Dennis Quaid is like in his early 40s. She looks around 30, and I'm just like, yeah, they look pretty normal next to each other. Like there's nothing scandalous about them.
Well, and the thing about this version is that all the characters play up the age difference, between the characters. But even for, an actress in the early 60s or just a woman of the early 60s, for being in her later 20s, she, people looked a little bit more mature than they do.
Yeah.
So
we almost don't even see.
They also always wore pancake makeup that I think ages you.
Yes.
And just a few years earlier, she was Gloria and Auntie Mame, and then all of a sudden she's this supposed to be like, a young girl, but to me she's a woman. She's as a little kid. That's a grown woman.
Oh, that is a grown woman. And she's her styling and even the way she's carrying herself in the character. So it's interesting because she's not playing it like, like a young girl who's just like, she is playing it like a gold digger, but not like a dumb young blonde. She's right. Her choices are really, really good. And she is evil and terrifying.
Yeah.
Kathleen Nesbitt, who plays her mother, is delivering camp perfection.
Down you go. Just those weird kind of Catskills line readings. She's hilarious.
Mm-hmm. Looking like she's just going to a funeral at one point when they bring the priest over.
Yeah.
Dressed in all black and she has a veil.
And I do think that was a thing of the time of being in mourning for years, or you'd always show that you were a widow. Probably because I'm Mrs. Robinson.
Little veil.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. It's like she is in mourning. For someone.
Innocence.
Okay, so we should speed it up here because.
So the cat's out of the bag with Susan over in Boston. They figure out what the situation is, and they're going to reunite the daughters with each other and the parents because they have not seen each other in 13 years. Maureen O'Hara and Haley Mills are going to go to California.
Yes.
I like that when she's leaving the house, her dad is just like, so, is that what you're going to wear? Just like, that's going to be what you're going to wear to meet your hot ex-husband?
It's very, there's a lot of fun with that idea of getting Maureen O'Hara to play dress up for us, for the audience.
And she gets she gets a makeover halfway through because when she gets out of that car, when she gets out of that taxi cab, she is like this vision in this fierce green dress.
Yeah.
She has this cute haircut.
Yeah. That green and all the collars that are kind of low and they show off that hourglass of hers. She's in it to win it at this point.
Yeah, she's pretty fierce. Because I do think that, she is also thinking maybe I can take him back.
Yeah.
Like, Mama's still got it.
Well, she has that point where she talks about, later on, she talks about all the plastic surgery she went through.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like that's just kind of glossed over.
Yeah.
And I think that we like gasped out loud at that line and just how they just sort of skip over it.
Right. Like, was she that desperate to fit a mold for somebody?
Yeah.
It's really weird.
She says like 16 plastic surgery.
Yeah.
And
God
help
facial
you.
reconstruction.
And this was like the late 50s when she got them. So those plastic surgeries would have been pretty gnarly.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, who knows what the hell they were doing to your face back then. Crazy. But that's just something, again, with these older movies that, like you said, they didn't have like the rewatchability. So they weren't expecting people to just like nitpick over every
line like we're doing right
now.
Right.
You watch it.
It's fun.
You saw it in the theater. You maybe got it on a re-release, and you caught it on the Magical World of Walt Disney when they reran it in like 1970.
And I squealed with delight.
Yes. But when she does get back to California, I mean, all hell doesn't break loose quite yet, but there's some really fun stuff.
All the little screwball stuff with Mitch where she punches him in the eye and then she tries to like look at his eye and the priest walks in thinking that they're like messing around. Those are cute scenes.
I like the fact that they're alluding to sexual behavior in a Disney film. It looks like we, and she says, like we what? And he covers her legs. All this stuff that's sex, the bra. The bar, the bathroom. There's a lot of stuff that I would not think a 1961 Disney movie would indicate.
Yeah,
I kind of like that this reverend isn't playing it overly stuffy. Like he's kind of into it. Like he thinks it's kind of hot. I don't know.
He's darling. I think he's so fun.
It's kind of funny how he plays all those moments.
Yeah.
When Maureen O'Hara stuffs the mother in the car, and I love the way she's just like her whole body is in the car with her, like telling her all this stuff.
Oh my goodness.
And just definitely I like how she plays those scenes where she's going to kill them with kindness.
Yeah.
She knows that this girlfriend will hate her even more if she's just very, very nice to her.
While injecting those little notes of, just charge it to good old Mitch. He's loaded. And then when she says, I didn't really know. Oh, didn't you?
Oh, no, yeah.
She's
How could you
awesome.
Yeah. And then also this car that they drive away in.
Yeah.
Yes. I believe
That
that's
giant steering wheel.
That's a beautiful car.
That Joanna Barnes is commanding when she drives out of that driveway. This huge, 1960 steering wheel on this car.
Yeah. It's a Lincoln. It's got that canted windscreen in the back.
In the back,
So it tilts backwards. It's wild. It's beautiful.
None of them with seatbelts.
No.
Of course not.
We got to get to the next camping scene.
Well, they do their little date at
the
Martorelli's.
date. Yeah.
So they sort of they get all of the housekeepers and
Hecky.
The ranch hand.
And the ranch hand to kind of help them set up this date. And this is where we get some cute twin sing-along stuff on the piano and the guitar. And
as a kid, I always thought that song was so dumb, but God help me if I don't always sing that song to myself once in a while. It's really catchy.
It is. It's a catchy little tune.
And did they just write this like the night before?
No, we heard it at the dance.
Oh, okay. So
let's get together. Yeah. But there's another.
Yeah.
Sorry. They wrote it the night before.
I know.
You can believe it's a song of that zeitgeist, and they
I love when they put the food down, and he's like, the dad's like, "What is this?" She goes, "It's veal parmesan." He's like, "She knows I hate this kind of stuff," and I'm like, "What,
Italian food?
Who hates Italian?"
Yeah. Are you so backwoods that's too exotic for you? Yeah. Chicken parm?
Just
a veal parm?
A steak and potatoes kind of guy.
Yeah, totally.
So they are setting up this camping trip, and this is where we get the girls. They think that they're not quite getting their way. Like, they haven't fallen in love yet, so they are going to pass themselves off of, you don't know which twin you're looking at, which I would think parents of twins would know which one they're looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although they haven't spent extended amounts of time with, like, either child, so maybe...
But you'd know the one that wasn't the one that you've had for the past 11 years.
And there's a weird moment when she shoos what she calls Sharon up the stairs. The way that character behaves, I believe that is Sharon. Because she's ready to go. She reacts so quickly to the name. But then she says, Susan, or the one I think is Susan, says, "You don't really know, do you?" And I guess at that point, you're taking a big risk no matter what you do.
Just take either kid.
Yeah, exactly. Like
you'll work it out later.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't get the fun camping stuff because they go camping with Joanna Barnes. So at first, Maureen O'Hara is going to go with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy that she's got a plan of her own.
She kind of talks her way out of it, and she knows that if she gets this woman out on this camping trip with him, that it's going to crack her.
Yeah, she knows the girls are going to know exactly what to do. It's really cunning.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, what we find out is that, she never really connected that well with Susan, and now that there's two of them, she's even more like, oh, well, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the girls pull more of their classic pranks throughout the trip. I just love, they do the thing about the little lake being not that deep, and
standing on her shoulders. You get that cool shot of
fish.
I was going to say that cool underwater shot of Haley Mills.
That is such a fun shot of the fish going and her holding her breath. I love that.
Love old movie underwater stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's like Mr. Limpet. It's just wild.
Love the incredible Mr. Limpet. But the big prank, the final prank in her tent.
Yeah.
Again, she must have taken an Ambien with her Franzia because she sleeps through.
Mm-hmm.
She must have taken a pretty big horse tranquilizer.
And she probably has horse tranquilizers, that character.
Yeah. Yeah. But I like that she wakes up to bears.
These little bear cubs.
Two actual bears eating the honey off her feet.
And the dad is just like, oh, they're just bears, or no, the ranch hands.
Yeah,
they're pretty much just like wild dogs. They won't hurt you.
They can't hurt you.
I'd freak out. I'd totally freak out.
It's not the cubs that you should be afraid of. Yeah. It's their mom, which is probably very, very close.
This is the last straw. She starts destroying.
Yeah, like Jesus in the marketplace.
Yeah, she's upturning tables. These old-fashioned Coleman camping equipment.
Yeah.
It's like straight up last episode of season 1 of New Jersey Housewives.
Flipping tables.
Prostitution whore. She's turned full
man.
Teresa.
And
She unleashes.
this is when she straight up slaps a child that is not hers.
Yeah.
I mean, that also seems like a very like early 60s type of thing, is manhandling children that aren't yours.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the way she does it, like she's so angry that her full-on mid-Atlantic accent comes out.
Yes.
You give your sister her half of this.
You share everything?
Yeah.
That slap is just like, oh my God. And he comes running out and he's just like, hey, all right, that's uncalled for.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, Mitch just says, hey, they didn't do anything to you. Like, I would be.
Yeah, yeah.
I would unleash if somebody did that to my kid.
Exactly. Even if it's a woman that you're, as your fiance, whatever. It's just like, wait a minute here. That's a line here.
That's way too far.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. He's just like, hey, take it easy.
Yeah.
So this last portion of the movie, it's one of those things that it's very much of the time of that, like the last act of this movie. It pretty much all takes place in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this last scene.
It's just this last scene, and the
it all
movie's
up.
done.
In that beautiful kitchen, so.
Yeah.
And she's barefoot. I love that.
I did notice that when she gets on the ladder, I think you can see it, right? Yeah. But this is a scene that I was talking about earlier where it's like their chemistry together. She's very cute with, how she's, how they're talking about things. I like this scene a lot, but it's funny because I'm not super familiar with the beats of the movie. So as I'm watching it, I'm like, okay.
You think that there's going to be like another scene of the movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Like they're going to be like, she's going to be off to the airport and he's going to come after her or something.
Right. Which seems to be a more later in the century trope than than there.
Yes, exactly.
But they just cuts right to wedding bells.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good scene. It ends on on the parents, but I mean it really ends on the girls. But the last scene in the kitchen is
right.
a good one between the adults.
Did you catch the 2 times that Marino O'Hara snorts?
No.
When he has the red wine. And he makes some comment, and she laughs, giggles, and says, you hear it really slightly. And then there's a point when she fumbles for the glass from him that he's giving her, and it's a very cute moment. It's very physical, like realistically based. Oh, I'm trying to reach it. Oh, this is funny, but she snorts. It's really quiet, but they didn't cut it out. They didn't edit it out.
Yeah,
Rena O'Hara is so beautiful; she can carry a snort.
Yeah,
it's not like a miscongeniality. Snort. It's just a little. It is so funny to me. I've loved that ever since I was a kid.
I think Marino O'Hara is one of those Hollywood actresses that was never Oscar nominated. Let me double check that. I don't think she ever got a nomination at all.
Not for the one that she did with John Candy, Only the Lonely. Was she nominated for that?
Oh my goodness,
she should have been. I thought she was brilliant in that.
No, was never Globe or Oscar nominated.
Oh wow.
So she's in a very exclusive club of Hollywood stars that never were recognized.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I feel like she only died in 2015. So
she was alive
up until 5 years ago.
Yeah, it was fairly recent.
Mm-hmm. And very actively interviewing about stuff. Whenever she was called upon, she would talk about Hollywood.
She'd probably do a lot of interviews talking about her relationship with John Wayne, because I think they were pretty close.
They're very close friends. Appears to be they were really just friends, but very close. Yeah.
Do we want to talk a little bit about Hayley Mills's career after this movie? Because I think it's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, I mean, this is a girl that was growing up on screen. I mean, she did these movies when she was 13, 14 years old, just sort of becoming a woman, and you just sort of have to navigate your way through that when in the spotlight. Because, I mean, she was like a household name after the release of this movie.
And to get a full picture of her rise, if you've ever seen Tiger Bay, the movie that she did that brought her to the attention of Walt Disney, I thought she was amazing in it. And it's easy to see why Walt Disney said, I want to know that girl.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
I got it a long time ago when on Netflix, the DVD, the actual DVD.
Sure.
And she does a brilliant performance. I think she's like 11 or 12, and she's fantastic.
How many movies did she do with Disney?
6.
Okay.
So she did this. She did The Parent Trap, Pollyanna, That Darn Cat, Summer Magic. What else am I missing?
Is the Castaways.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there was one called The Moon Spinners, but I don't know if that was Disney. I don't think that was Disney.
And yeah, I don't think that Trouble with Angels was, it was probably like Warner Brothers or something. And that was her kind of doing her version of like Superbad or like Bridesmaids. It was her like having fun and just sort of doing kind of a silly teenager movie.
Yeah. And it still
Sort of
pretty much felt
breaking out for her.
close to the Disney feel. I think Ida Lupino directing that, and it was very much a heartwarming movie.
Who plays the head nun in that movie? Is it Rosalind Russell? Yeah, Rosalind Russell. And so interesting, we were talking a little bit about this before we started recording, but Hayley Mills got into a relationship with like a 50-year-old man when she was like 20 years old.
Yeah.
And she married him. I want to say that she like broke up a marriage, right?
I think you're right. And she also did a movie, and I don't know if it was a movie he directed, I can't remember, but where she appeared nude.
Yes.
And that was part of her
Mm-hmm.
break away from her old image thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, she had a wild period, which seems funny because when you see her now and she talks, she seems fairly staid and genteel, but I think
Yeah.
she had a wild period there.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least trying to express herself period.
And I know that
She
she
did struggle with bulimia.
too.
Oh, I didn't know that. Really?
Yeah, so she did have like an eating disorder, like a lot of young Hollywood actresses. She had body image issues. So, yeah, I mean, things weren't exactly perfect for her behind the scenes. She was going through it like every young person was at that time of their life. And then she, I believe, married another guy, had kids, and then she married a third guy in 97 who she's still married to, and he's like 20 years younger than her.
Oh, wow. I remember she would appear in People magazine here and there when I was a kid. You
Sure.
know,
Like a Where Are They Now?
a Where Are They Now kind of thing. What's she doing now? And then, you know, she did the requisite Love Boats and all those things.
She probably worked around in the 80s because she did the Parent Trap sequel that was made for the Disney Channel in like probably 85.
Which I did watch.
And then she did Good Morning Miss Bliss. And Good Morning Miss Bliss was what they retooled Saved by the Bell from.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I've seen a few episodes of that. And
It's nice.
It's sweet. It's very different from like Saved by the Bell. It's a totally different energy. They were going for more of a after-school special type sitcom of these kids' relationships or their relationship with their teacher, because she's very much like sort of inspiring young minds.
Yeah, I totally get the retooling. I totally get why they retooled it.
Yeah.
But even in that performance, she's very, it's very wholesome. And
Yes.
for me as a kid, I was like, oh, that's Pollyanna. That's the girl from the Parent Trap, all grown up. And she played it, a very wholesome performance. So there were 2 Parent Trap sequels in the 80s that were direct to the Disney Channel.
I haven't seen 3. I did watch 2.
Do you remember any of it?
I will say it is a masterwork of uninspired production value and direction and performance. Although I will say she has a few moments where it looks like she's almost having fun, but the direction doesn't quite capture it. It's such a low budget video movie entry that it doesn't seem to belong in the franchise at all.
Right.
Sure.
Well, this is also the era. I mean, much like today, people forget that in the 80s, there were reboots galore. There was Brady Bunch, Leave It to Beaver, Munsters, all those shows. There was a Lucy sitcom in the very early 80s. All those shows had reboots and remakes. And so they're probably just capitalizing on that and making it made for television, made for the Disney Channel.
The Disney
which
Channel was very
new
new at the time, so they just wanted properties to expand.
Yeah, so to just make something on the cheap and make some money off of it was probably, first order of business for these studios. So.
I understand it did very well, too. So, more power to them. Who am I?
Yeah.
It's probably how she got Miss Bliss, just based on that. Like, hey, she's still, viable.
She's working.
Yeah. I remember the advertisements for them. And I remember just that period of remakes and being kind of fascinated with them.
Yeah.
I preferred Very Brady Christmas.
I loved it. I just watched that like a few months ago.
Isn't it just glorious?
It's pretty wild.
Insanity.
We could cover it on this show for a Christmas episode.
The
eventually.
closer time capsule and the way that they revamped the Brady house into that 80s pastel.
Oh
fantasy.
my God. Yes. Yeah. It's like the old house, but with shoulder pads. And
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All the furniture and beautiful. But that's another episode.
What kind of a director or TV is going to bring Haley Mills out of retirement? She needs to get on like a Ryan Murphy show or something.
Yeah.
Would that be kind of a
a funny stunt cast for like a Ryan Murphy show.
would be
I'd love
Haley
to see
Mills.
her do something that doesn't trade on what she's known for.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because I still think she's got acting ability. She just has always been doing those roles that don't require something deep from the audience, I'll say.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, we'll see. You never know.
Yeah.
Somebody could write something for her.
Mm-hmm.
We
And
can
her
write
sister I knew from The Nanny and the Professor I grew up with. Julia.
I
Forget about the sister.
She comes from an acting family because her
Yeah.
parents are actors.
A dynasty.
Mm-hmm. Love an acting dynasty.
And the sister married Maxwell Caulfield.
Oh, sure.
And she's way older than him.
Oh, yeah.
that's
They're still
right.
together, aren't they?
I
I
think
think
they
so.
are.
Yes.
I love that.
Love it. That was a big scandal at the
Good
time.
for the
because he
sister
was-
for
oh my
snagging
goodness.
that piece.
That was
Yeah.
big. Yeah, I remember when he came on the scene, everybody was like, look at that guy. Who's that guy?
Mhm.
He's such a nice looking man. But yeah, I love the whole Mills family. And John Mills plays the butler in the Chalk Garden that I mentioned earlier. And
Mhm.
he's in Tiger Bay as well. He's
Oh,
a
okay.
fantastic actor. Great Expectations. I mean,
Wow.
He plays Pip's dad in Great Expectations.
he plays Pip's friend, doesn't he? I think.
Oh, okay.
They're the same age. It's him and Alec Guinness. Or
Oh,
I
that.
can't remember his name in the
Yeah, we'll have to figure it out.
movie.
Wow. Yeah, who knew?
Well, this has
Haley
been so
Mills.
much fun. I love this
Yeah.
movie. And like I said, one of those movies that whenever it's on TV, I will sit down and watch the almost 2.5 hour runtime of this movie. And I feel like it flies by.
It does. Yeah.
And no disrespect to the Lindsay Lohan one. I think it's fine. I was a kid when it came out. I was probably around like 12 years old when it came out. I remember seeing it in the theater, but just sitting in the theater just thinking, it's not as good as the Haley Mills movie. I was one of those kids. And I've never, I totally get people my age and their affection for it, but I've never quite had it.
Right.
I was always all about the original.
And I was 32 when the Lindsay Lohan version came out. And I sat in the theater with my best friend, and I had also just gotten sober. So this is really weird. So the Parent Trap, which was a huge part of my whole development, and then seeing this new version sober when my mind's all whacked out on what is happening. Everything was like, what is happening? Oh, she's Maureen O'Hara now. Oh, she's, it was so wild. It was so weird to see my childhood reissued in front of me with a new set of glasses, as it were.
Yeah.
Wow. What a trip. Yeah, I mean, this movie's it's a classic for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming on the
Yes.
show.
Thanks. Thank you. I love, and to be able to say to a couple of guys, this is a movie that makes me cry at the drop of a hat, in a podcast that's called Movies That Made Us Gay is so liberating. So thank you both of you for doing
Oh, you're welcome.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. We'd love to have you back on sometime.
Love it.
For another episode. But in the meantime, it's probably time to say good evening. Until next time.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks.
And thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Pete, did you notice who commented on our last Clueless post as we were recording this episode?
I did. We got a notification that one Amy Heckerling liked and commented on our Clueless
She
post.
gave us rainbow hearts.
That's so
sweet. I love Amy Heckerling.
Oh, my God.
And I have already pre-ordered the Fast Times at Ridgemont High Criterion that is coming out this summer. I've already pre-ordered it.
Fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, Amy Heckerling, we love you. We love Clueless. We love your work. Thank you so much for commenting. You should listen to the show.
And thank you for listening. It's been a fun episode.
Yes, indeed.
First episode of March. Isn't that crazy?
March.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. This year, it's flying by. Yeah, thanks so much for listening, everybody. We would love it if you would rate and review our
Give us 5 stars.
Head over to Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars. Give us a great review.
Helps with those mysterious Apple algorithms.
Helps us get noticed.
Visible.
Yeah, helps us get visible when people search through Apple Podcasts and look for something to listen to. But we are on social media, Instagram and Facebook at Movies That Made Us Gay. We're also on Twitter
At MTMUG Pod.
Yes, indeed. I am Pete. I am on Instagram and Twitter at Peter Lasagna.
And I'm Scott Youngbauer on Facebook, Scott Youngballer on Instagram, and Oscar Scott on Twitter, and just Scott Youngbauer on Letterboxd.
Yes, indeed. Well, once again, thank you so much for listening. And until next week, bye.
Bye.